Is on converting squared units of measure. Please be sure that you've watched converting linear units of measure before moving on to this lesson, because if you're having trouble with converting linear units of measure, you're going to have real difficulty with converting squared units of measure. So make sure you have a strong grasp on linear units before moving on to these squared units. Before we start this lesson, we're just going to talk about squared units of measure. So if we were looking at something as basic as 10 squared, what that is actually telling us is this squared here is telling us that we need to multiply this twice. So what 10 squared actually is 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. So 10 squared is actually 100. Okay, you can do that with any number. If you had 5 squared, again, all it's telling you to do, this squared is saying that you need to do 5 times 5. Okay, so you get 5 times 5, which is equal to 25. So 5 squared is the same as 25. Okay, one other example, if we had 35 squared, okay, again, this squared is telling us we need to multiply this by itself. So 35 times 35, which equals 1,225. So then 35 squared is equal to 1,225. Okay? It's important to know what to do with squared units for converting squared units of measure. Here we go on with the slideshow. So just a quick review on the units of measure before we get started. Again, this is from the last lesson, so we're going to be using the same staircase. Okay, when you're going up the stairs, okay, you need to be dividing to convert your units of measure. When you're going down the stairs from a larger unit of measure to a smaller unit of measure, you need to be multiplying. Okay, like we said last time, if you went up one step, you'd be dividing by 10, 2 by 100, 3 by 1,000, 4 by 10,000, etc., etc. Okay, so we're going to be using the exact same method for converting squared units of measure. There's just one small difference. So this first example, we're going to look at converting 5 centimeters squared into, millimeters squared. Okay, so to do this again, we need to find our starting point. So we're starting at centimeters. Okay, we're going to a smaller unit of measure, millimeters, so we're going down the stairs, so we know that we need to be multiplying. So we're going to be doing 5 times. Now we're going down one step, so we're going to be multiplying by 10, but we need to remember that it's not just 10. We're working with squared units, so it's going to actually be 10 squared. So we need to do 5 times 10 squared, so we need to figure out what 10 squared is equal. And from the last slide, okay, if you have 10 squared, you're just doing 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. So you are actually doing 5 centimeters squared times 100. Okay? And 5 centimeters squared times 100 is going to equal 500 millimeters squared. Okay? So your conversion from 5 centimeters squared is equal to 500 millimeters squared. So again, everything is the same. You're multiplying and dividing the same way as with linear units. You're figuring out what you're multiplying or dividing by the exact same way by figuring out how many stairs up or down you're going. The only difference is now you're multiplying or dividing by squared units of measure, so you need to make sure you understand how to figure out what a squared unit of measure equals.